Chris, the recording that we do
OMG.
before we go live, this is our version of the Epstein files. These are called the BAM files. Okay,
It's
so we
like-
just all the recording before we
Yeah.
go live. That's what we.
Is that why
And
you
then-
guys invited me? It's a blackmail thing. We're trying to get
Yeah,
dirt.
100.
That makes sense.
This is like the podcast honeypot. Like we just get people to say crazy stuff.
And then the podcast
it.
is just a scam. We just do the podcast to get this stuff, to get the stuff
dirt.
before
Well,
we go live.
But Byron,
If you're not getting educated about local and national real estate news, market conditions, industry mergers, change in terms of service, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers podcast. We're going Hollywood Square style today. We've got Josh Rubin, the #1 resale team at Douglas Elliman in New York City. We've got Chris Giannos, the founder and CEO of Humanize.io. I'm a client there. Great service. You can talk to him about that. And we've got Byron Lazine and Lisa Chinatti. And we've got a jam-packed show here. The terms of service with Follow Up Boss and Zillow have changed. Agents are losing their mind. We're going to lead off with that. We also see Zillow and ChatGPT now working together. And there's some questions there about real estate access and access to listings. And Josh Rubin's going to talk about what's going on in New York City with the mayoral campaign coming up. There's a lot to discuss. Let's lead off with the terms of service, you four. So it was yesterday. There was an update to Follow Up Boss's terms of service and privacy policy, and real estate agents proceeded to lose their goddamn minds. The comments are insane. Chris Giannos at least had a reasonable take on this, while most people were going for the clickbait headlines. The short of this is, I'm on their FAQ page right now. So here's what they said. Your follow-up boss experience stays the same product, same team. Your data remains protected and in your control. Zillow will only use data from your account for its own purposes when there's a direct, independent relationship with the client. For example, if they have their own Zillow account, for these shared customers, we will use their data with their permission and only as explained in Zillow's privacy notice and follow-up boss addendum to the Zillow privacy notice. This change helps us move faster and build more value for agents. We're here if you have questions. There's a bunch of FAQs. And, you know, my view on this is really, I think the change is that if people have a Zillow account and they're in your follow-up boss, Zillow's going to use that data. So, we've got a lot of real estate agents on the and team leaders on the show today. And this is no different than if Josh Rubin and I got the same lead and we both worked it. This is no different than the leads in your database talking to another agent across the country. And if agents would stop freaking out about Zillow trying to take their clients and maybe call some people in their CRM, they might be doing a little better. So
Tom,
I think this is a nonsense take. I think people are losing their mind. What do you guys think?
Well, we've got Tom's take, but I think before any of us react with our takes, I'd like to offer up Chris Giannos's just deep dive into the terms of services. Chris sent over some of the notes that he had digging through the terms. There's really two links to be aware of. We'll link them both in the show notes that you really need to pay attention to. It's not just the link that a lot of people have been sharing yesterday. There's two links you need to dig into. Chris did a pretty deep dives, and Chris Giannos, guys, is a former employee of Zillow. So we'll kind of do a zoom out with Chris, break it down for us, what's really inside on the legalities, and then we'll kind of share mine, Lisa's, and Josh's reactions since we already have Tom's.
Sure. Yeah, and I want to preface this. I'm not an attorney, and everyone should seek their own independent counsel and like review this stuff. This is just my interpretation of this.
None of us are. That's a good point.
Yeah.
But we can choose to have you represent us if we choose to. Right?
You could. Yes, it's a free country. You can do whatever you want, Josh Rubin.
It's better than representing myself. Chris Giannos for mayor.
Yeah. I don't know how good of an idea that is, but so when I saw this yesterday, I think a lot of people rush to just like, it's really easy to use Zillow like as a scapegoat, right? And as like the big bad wolf. It's easier to blame them than it is to actually like take responsibility for your own business, which is why I think it blew up the way it did yesterday. But after reviewing the terms of service and actually like digging into what is actually changing, I think there's just two important things that agents, team leaders, brokerage owners, anyone that's using the FUB platform should be aware of. Zillow already has all of this data for the most part, right? The amount of data that company has from like a sheer just overhead, it's incredible, right? The amount of data they have on not just housing stuff, but buyers and sellers and search behavior, like it is incredible. So the reality is that probably a large, overwhelming majority of your customers are already in Zillow's database somehow, along with Redfin's and Realtor.coms and every other portal on the planet, right? But for FUB users specifically, I think the important verbiage that people should be aware of is there's two distinct types of contacts now in the platform. You have what they're calling and referring to as mutual customers, right? And a mutual customer is, let's say that you have a past client. Lisa sold a house or a really cool brownstone in Boston. I don't know if there are brownstones in Boston, but we're going to go for it.
Lots of them.
Yeah, Lisa owns one of them. It's like
perfect.
Lisa, $20 million or something.
Lisa sold a brownstone, and she's got a past client now that she puts into Follow Up Boss to manage that relationship. If that past client has a Zillow profile, right, in some way, shape, or form, whether it be linked through a phone number, an email address, whatever it is, they're looking at that as a mutual customer, right? Which to them now means that they can use data inside the Follow Up Boss platform to do things like better market to that person, right? Create a better user experience, train AI models, which, surprise, I just want to be transparent. Like every CRM is trying to train AI models on data right now. They have all of it. Everyone is trying to do that. I know that because we're thinking about it in the same landscape, right? So that's the important distinction. If you have a mutual customer, that data now under this new privacy policy falls under Zillow's privacy policy as well and gives them the ability to use that data for their benefit. I don't necessarily think that Zillow is going to be proactively calling people, for example, right? Or doing things like that. It's, I think, naive to think that Zillow isn't sending property alerts currently to their database pretty regularly, right? I get them. Everyone else gets them. They're always trying to activate leads. And guess what? So are every listener on this podcast right now, right? We do property alerts. That's like a core function of our job. Everyone's trying to do that. So that's the mutual customer. I think they're calling it what is it? A customer only contact or something. I'm not sure of the exact definition. I don't have my notes in front of me, but the other type of distinct contact in the platform now is these people that do not have a Zillow profile. And if they do not have a Zillow profile. And if they don't, Zillow is saying that they are not going to use any of the data that's on that contact and Follow Up Boss for any reason, in any way, shape, or form.
How Zillow's defining these groups: agent-only customer, a contact that exists only in your CRM and has no Zillow account. And then mutual customer, anyone who also uses Zillow, buyer, seller, renter, whatever. They've basically signed up for a Zillow account.
Zillow, Trulia, StreetEasy, any of their portals, right? It kind of gives them the ability to have an overhead on that. So here's the way I would be thinking about this. In my opinion, and I'm probably going to get some hate for this, like this isn't really that big of a deal. In my opinion, I think that it's important to be aware of this and keep up to date with what's happening with tools we use, and transparency is incredibly important in this day and age. But they already had this data, and if it were me and I was an agent right now looking at this and thinking, should I get upset or not? I would channel that energy and do the Tom Toole and just get on the phone. That's how you win with this scenario, right? It's
do the Tom Toole. I think we're going to have to call it that from now on, Chris.
Get on the phone.
There's so few agents that do that. We might as well coin the phrase. Can we trademark this, Byron? Can we maybe market this here?
Yeah, send me $2,000. I'll get on it.
Or make it like a TikTok dance. Like we can like
Tom Toole. Oh yeah.
The origin of all of our frustration in business, that includes brokerage, that includes headhunting. The origin is our inability to communicate on the cadence that our consumers wish that we would. All right. It's not that they don't like us. These are people who know, like, and trust us, who turn around and do something unexpected, often that does not involve us guiding them. And that's because we're not communicating with them in the style that they prefer, right? And so our frustration boils down to our failure to be able to listen to the tells, the hints that the consumers are providing to us. I, myself included, I'm not immune to this. I've had failures. I'll continue to have failures because I'm human. So with Zillow, they're able to do it better simply because they have the resources to build out these AI models to constantly tune the consumer to know that they're going to be in the path of whatever it is they want, whether it be to buy or sell.
Yeah, I agree. I think the the overarching theme here is be aware of it, but business as usual and channel that energy into something positive, because this is just it's a lot of noise for not a lot of reason, in my opinion.
Lisa, you have a reaction?
So yes. And so what I'll say is I tend to agree, but what I want to kind of bring up, I was perusing our comments, some of the comments on the YouTube channel, maybe two episodes ago.
The hate.
And
Uh-oh.
yeah, well, not hate, maybe hate, but one of the things that they said is that everybody on this podcast is pro Zillow because we're flex partners and have to be. And so, Josh, interesting take, because you are not flex partner, correct? Not really with.
I am. It's labeled something different only because Zillow was never able to make formal inroads into our vertical market here, but StreetEasy did. Zillow, of course, as we know, acquired StreetEasy many years ago. And so they've sort of built their market share on the back of StreetEasy. StreetEasy does have a similar program to Flex. It's called the StreetEasy Experts Campaign. It runs basically the same way.
Okay. All right. Got it. But so I guess kind of what I want to just kind of, pick at maybe is, are we all giving Zillow, giving them an easy road off? Because Chris, you used to be an employee, and, Byron, Tom, and Josh, because you guys have a connection to Zillow through this, right? I was also on the Follow Up Boss Facebook group last night and reading some of the the comments that were popping up on the post. I shared them in our group chat this morning. But so it's interesting. And Byron, you are very not level.
What does that mean?
Break that down.
Byron, you have strong opinions. And so if you had to play devil's advocate, could you? Or are you so adamantly that this is just an overreaction that that's where you go and continue to go?
I'll offer some devil's advocacy, I guess. Or
okay, perfect.
But before I do that, Bobby, my general way of thinking about this is unchanged from almost 2 years ago when Zillow bought Follow Up Boss. Bobby will play the 10-second clip here. But here's the other point about the data. Zillow doesn't have to steal your data. They already have it. Oh, no, these are my clients. No, they're not. No, they're not. Yeah, yes, maybe they are. Okay, fine, they're your clients. You don't think your clients have ever wandered over to that website called Zillow and punched in some information? Zillow has your client's information. They don't need to take it out of your Follow Up Boss account. They already have it. So the point is they already have the information. That's unchanged. I mean, everybody said that. It'd be like me. I have a financial planner. Probably everybody here does, right? It'd be like me saying, you know what? I'm so loyal to my financial planner. I'm never going to download Fidelity and Robinhood and Coinbase. Like, I'm never going to download those apps. I'm never going to look at the different offers that they have. I have a Fidelity account. I have a Coinbase account, and I also have a financial planner. Now, when I've done certain things in Coinbase or even in my Fidelity account, have I had a conversation with my financial planner? Yes, absolutely. But for him to think, my financial planner, that these other competitors to, your planner, that they don't have my data already would just be plain dumb. And so any agent who thinks that they have a client who only speaks to them. The reason why I said 2 years ago, everybody thinks that they have a client. A client is somebody who is signed with you, who is not getting out of that contract. And during that time period, they're a client. When they're unsigned, we like to think of them as we own them. We have ownership over them. No, we have the opportunity to remarket them. If we have another product that lives beyond the sale that creates a client experience, then maybe then you could call them a client. But this whole thing about, because you've worked with somebody, they are now your client for life, and they're going to give you this loyalty of only speaking to you, never signing up for Zillow or realtor.com or homes.com. It's ludicrous. It's an elementary way of thinking. It's silly. It's emotional. Most agents, by the way, the biggest lie told in our industry is all agents are entrepreneurs. The emotional responses that have come out of this show how few entrepreneurs we actually have in real estate. A real true-blooded entrepreneur doesn't get like teary-eyed about terms of service agreements at all. So
all this is, Byron, is the illusion of exclusivity, right? Unless you have somebody chained to you at the hip, they're ready, willing, and liable to do the unexpected. So it's up to us as the quote unquote agent of choice to constantly be in front of them and providing the service that we think that they know that we are able to, but oftentimes we disappoint them and we disappoint ourselves by getting distracted by the next shiny penny, i.e. the lowest hanging fruit in the form of a buyer or seller that we think is going to be the easiest path to success. And then we forget about those that are sort of mid or higher up in the funnel.
Yeah, I want to make a point too. I'm like not pro or against Zillow at this point, like at least in like my thinking with this stuff. What I'm pro for right now with this like Cold War that's happening in the industry right now, it seems like there's like sides forming. I'm pro like team leader and brokerage owner because those are like my people, and pro agent, right? I've gotten literal messages from Zillow around like some of the memes and stuff we've done poking fun at some of this stuff. So like I'm pro whatever's going to make teams and brokerages successful. And in a lot of these circumstances, it's like you can either get with it or be against it. But still, in my opinion, and I think the reason why I lean a little bit more towards the pro side is like with Flex specifically, I don't think there is a single faster and more cost-effective way to build a book of business for an agent than that platform. Right? You could argue cold calling's free and X, Y, and Z. Good luck. Most agents can't Tom Toole, right? And if you're an agent that's wanting to build a book of business, that is a really, really fast way to do it. And yeah, I get it. 40% referral fee is expensive. So is paying a 30% referral fee to another agent, right? So like I'm pro and like for team leaders and brokerage owners. And if that means getting along nicely with the 800-pound gorilla in the room to avoid getting beat up, like I'm going to do it.
So
right?
Lisa asked me to play devil's advocate, which I'll offer up now. And what this means is Zillow through Follow Up Boss on the mutual customers, anyone who also uses Zillow, which is basically everybody.
Everyone.
Your customers would be dumb if they didn't go on Zillow and only took one person's recommendation 100% of the time. That would be a dumb person, not vetting it out on like the largest platform that exists for customers. So a lot of mutual customers. Zillow through Follow Up Boss will now have an easier path to creating really relevant offers and adjusting and tweaking that messaging particular to the data that lives in Follow Up Boss. So smart entrepreneurs, smart business operators are going to recognize that and say, geez, maybe I should have other platforms where my customers live. Maybe I should have something where all of my clients that I've transacted with in the past are stored and I'm making my offers to them, and they don't. Follow Up Boss is designed for new leads coming in to, coming in from online, for that new lead, that initial new lead, and then classifying them from there, 60 to 90 days, nurture wherever. When somebody's transacted with you in the past, Follow Up Boss is not the best solution for that. It can offer a solution, but it's not like what Mosaic has built out where there's a post-close relationship. It's not offering up what, if somebody's in the middle of a long-term search. Now you can latch on something like Real Scout and put the search results on that, but it's really Real Scout that's driving it, not Follow Up Boss. There's all of these other platforms that if you're a real operator, real entrepreneur, that, yeah, maybe not all of your clients are living in Follow Up Boss. You're not sending newsletters out through Follow Up Boss. There's a lot of things that Follow Up Boss is not great at.
Sure.
And so always searching for a one-size-fits-all piece of tech tells me that you're average at a lot of things. And so I guess I'll wrap this up by saying devil advocate is, yes, the path to them creating great offers for your mutual customers got a whole heck of a lot easy. It was easy before. They're just now telling you how easy they're going to make it by taking the data and putting it through their AI LOMs and that kind, or learning models and that kind of stuff.
Amen.
Well said.
All
Well,
right.
I think we're all clear
Lisa,
on that. I mean,
you have some. You didn't really give your thoughts. You kind of like threw it at me and tried to throw me under the bus. So what are your actual thoughts?
No, I agree with everything that everybody is saying. I am on team. Look, if you're not doing the right things, and if you're naive enough to think that like all consumers don't go to Zillow, whether they're planning to transact in the next 30, 60, 90 days, or whether their transaction might be 3 years in the future. Look, both my kids, they're 19 and 21. Both my kids have Zillow profiles. They've had Zillow profiles since before I could even remember, and they look at homes, right? So like, I think it's silly, right? The consumers are already there. If they're now giving them more messaging, I mean, it's not going to change, right? So it's where I fall, but I just think it's important. That feedback on the pod a couple of weeks ago was fascinating, that people think that the only reason we're pro Zillow is because of our flex partnerships, and I don't think it's that.
I don't think it's that, because if I lost my Zillow partnership tomorrow, I wouldn't change what I've said over the years. I've said over the year, the first article I ever published on BAM was called Zillow's Dirty Little Secret. Like, they're going to basically be a broker without having to
have liability.
And that's exactly what they've done. Like, I've said these things in plain English for years. Yep. And then people think I'm a fan. Like, no, I'm telling you obviously what they're doing. I'm also referring back to Gary Vee from a decade ago, where he said, hey, agents, wake up. You already lost. Your brokers couldn't compete with Zillow, and now they have the biggest brand, and it's not going away because customers go to brand. Like, the game is already over. It's cooked. And
yeah,
any customer who doesn't use Zillow and check things there would be a dumbass.
Agree.
You know, what's fascinating to me is I think that we're all on this together, because we've all had our own individual goals and worked toward them to accomplish what we set out to achieve. Some have been, having and raising kids. Some have been buying a certain type of house in a certain location. Some have been making investments in, setting our financial goals or opening ancillary businesses. And some people out there will say, hey, you know what? I'm going to take in a certain amount of protein, carbohydrates, and fiber a day, and I'm going to go to the gym once or twice or more times a day to get to a certain point in my weight and my physical goals. And these people accomplish this. We've all seen it, right? There's one of the biggest television shows in history called The Biggest Loser, right? And these people have accomplished these goals that you would never think possible. And because they set out to achieve certain things, that they've actually gotten there. And so if we want to set out to do 100 deals as individual agents, we all on this show know that it's possible, because you're going to sit down and you're going to call a certain number of people. And you know what? Who cares if you don't have experience? You're going to figure out a way to get from point A to point B. And so we can do the same thing. The only reason that Zillow exists is because we have such a low bar for entry into our business, and there's such a high degree of attrition by way of failure, because people refuse to do the work. So you got to do the work in order to achieve success. And who cares if there's a Zillow? Who cares if there isn't a Zillow? Because you know what? There's another Zillow right behind the Zillow that's out there right now. Because it's such an easy way to just gather all the data, and then you're going to win.
There's another
That's all.
Zillow behind the Zillow. It's maybe Compass. The reason Zillow also exists is because brokers historically have been not innovative. They've shown a lack of awareness around technology, and they've taken their message from the top, that being NAR, which is let's create an industry of gatekeepers and try to just keep everything for ourselves instead of opening it up to customers. And Zillow came in and saw opportunity in that and beat the hell out of everybody's brokers. Now, Compass is doing something, agree or disagree, obviously, that is starting to take back some of that power. And that's where you see, obviously, the back and forth legally between all of these companies trying to rewrite the rules while NAR sits on the sidelines. But Zillow or Lisa, did you have anything before we move on to the GPT story?
No, it's not worth. Nope, you can skip it. Let's go. GPT. You just gave us the greatest segue ever, talking about tech and innovation.
There we go.
Yep. So,
Well,
oh, go ahead, Tom.
I'm just going to intro the story, Lisa. That's my job. So back
Okay,
off.
go ahead.
All right. Zillow is now the first and only real estate app in ChatGPT. And we missed this last week because we had Barry Habib on. We would have talked about it last week. And, they've had these major lawsuits come out, and they had this news release that they officially launched the only real estate app in ChatGPT, making it the first of its kind to integrate directly with OpenAI's platform. Byron, I know you talked about this on The Real Word, and what Zillow said in their press release was the new app brings the power of real estate listings, financing, and housing insights to everyday conversations. And now they can type things into ChatGPT like Zillow's Show Me Homes for Sale in Philadelphia under $600,000, and instantly there's going to be live listings with photos, maps, and prices. And they can even click into Zillow to schedule a tour. I think this is a smart move for them. Although there's something that had happened. I mean, Bing tried to do this, and they got pulled. So this was back in 2024 that Microsoft did not have a license to display this data, and they got into some hot water there because they had full MLS property listings with photos, ads for mortgages and home inspectors, and features like the ability to favorite listings and see valuations. And there was some question there, and ended up having to pull that off of Bing. So I'm kind of curious about how this is going to play out. Chris, what do you think? I mean, you've worked with Zillow. I think this is a pretty smart move on their part. Everyone's going to AI search right now, so I like the move strategically. It's a license question.
There's a big shift right now, and I want to preface this by saying, at least the last report I read was that like 99.2% of consumers still start their search for whatever it is, not just real estate, by using a traditional platform like Google or whatever it may be, right? So it's still a small segment of the market, but I think that eventually we're going to start to see this kind of like inflection point with the behavior changing from search to ask, right? Which is the idea that people are using platforms like ChatGPT and Perplexity and Claude and all these different things instead of the old behavior of going online and typing in a question and searching, right? You're going to go in and ask, because these platforms now, they're designed to give you like a fully baked answer, not have you decipher, I don't know, a page or two of results to actually form an opinion or get an answer to your question, right? So I think it's very smart. What's going to be more interesting to me is it seems like from a strategy standpoint, Zillow's been focusing a lot on their showcase product, right? Which is like their newest thing. They're like featured listings product essentially. And when I got into ChatGPT and started playing with this like a week ago, that's the first thing I went for is, how is it actually going to rank listings? If I go in and ask, I'm looking for a loft in downtown Dallas that's at least 1,500 square feet under this price point with this HOA, how is it going to serve the listings up to me specifically based on what I'm actually looking for? Is it going to prioritize other listings over other listings? So I think it's smart. I still think that it's such a smaller part of actual consumer search behavior that it's not entirely relevant right now, but I think that's going to happen fast, and that behavior change is going to start to pick up velocity. So I think it's smart. And I think if I was an agent right now and had listings, I would be thinking about ways to optimize my listing descriptions so they index. Jason Pantana just did some really cool content on this, because these models do index information differently than like a Google or traditional SEO does. I know Lisa and I were talking about this for something completely separate the other day, but it seems, and I don't know what this is, it's something we should probably look into. There are ways to write listing descriptions so that ChatGPT does index it better over other listing descriptions, for example. So I think it's a really smart move in my opinion, but I don't think it's a hair on fire level 10 priority right now for agents specifically.
Oh, I don't know. Well, maybe not level 10, but there's a startling statistic from this Kaplan Real Estate Education survey of trends that they put out. And 82% of customers, the 82% comes from, I believe, realtor.com. 82% of consumers are using AI to get information on the housing market right now. 82% of consumers are using AI to get information on the housing market. The startling statistic is during this Kaplan Real Estate Education survey that only 46% of agents or 46% are not using AI at this time. Almost 1 out of 2 agents are just completely not using AI in any form. About 1 in 6, 17% say they do not intend to use AI in the next 1 to 3 years. Like they'll just get to that
That's
later.
crazy.
So, and we'll post the articles on BAM, but we'll post it down below in the show notes. But think about that. There's almost 1 out of 5 agents that are saying, I'm not even going to get to this in the next 1 to 3 years. I'll just figure it out later. While 8 out of 10 customers now today, it'll probably be 9 out of 10 in a year or two, are using AI for their real estate search. I mean, if you're not paying attention to this and getting better at this, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, the AI thing is, I don't know why people are avoiding it. I'm seeing like 2 camps of people right now. There's people that are trying to find ways to get it into like their daily practice and workflows. And it seems like the gap between those people and the people that aren't, it's going to be profound. And this isn't like a fear mongering thing, but like I look at my own personal productivity using some of these tools. What used to take me a week or 2 to get projects across the finish line, like very research heavy stuff or like just busy work heavy stuff, I can get across the finish line in a weekend now. Things that used to take me a week or 2. And I'm sure everyone on this call is probably experiencing the same level of productivity increases. If people aren't using it, the gap between you and the people that are is going to be profound at some point. And that's not a scare tactic. I think that's reality at this point.
It just like the example of your customers they'd be crazy to only talk to one agent and not kind of go check out what's going on Zillow or realtor.com as they have these conversations. They'd be equally as crazy not to take the messaging that you're sending them over and dump it through ChatGPT and say, what do you think of this agent's strategy and breakdown? And is there anything else out there in the market that's working that you can offer me? Hello, like it's happening. I mean, I see some of the responses that agents are getting. I'm like, you realize that they're like, what does this guy think he's an attorney? I'm like, you realize where they're getting this language from, right?
Oh, dude, I have a really interesting anecdote on that. I'll just share on that same token, like legal stuff. Around the end of Q2, I got notices we work with a variety of different attorneys for different stuff at Humanize, right? We have a contracts person, terms of cert, like a couple of different attorneys. And at the end of Q2, we got emails from them. And I'm curious if you guys got similar emails from your guys' counsel, but they were basically like, hey, we're raising rates by like 25%, right? 30% hourly. And I was like, that's weird. So one of them's my friend and I called him. I go, hey, Matt, why? Like, that's not an inflation thing. Like, that's a pretty significant increase.
Tariffs.
He goes, let me ask you a question. He goes, when was the last time you called me for basic legal advice that took 15 to 20 minutes? And I was like, I don't. I only call you like when I get stuck. He's like, yeah, exactly. What do you do now? And I go, I ask ChatGPT and then I form an opinion. And if I need that opinion validated, I call you. He goes, exactly. You're calling me half as much. And every attorney is experiencing the same thing. So I think that's spot on, Byron.
Yeah. Josh, any thoughts on the Zillow making a big money deal with ChatGPT? Who do you think Sam Altman over there at OpenAI wants to do deals with? Josh Rubin in New York City or Jeremy Waxman from Zillow? What's your thoughts on that, Josh?
Well, there's nothing like boots on the ground, 30 years experience and, understanding the nuances of the buildings, the blocks. I mean, I showed somebody a $12 million listing that Rush Limbaugh used to own on Fifth Avenue with absolutely stunning views of Central Park. So when I arrived at the building, I noticed that even though the address is a Fifth Avenue address, the entrance is not on Fifth Avenue, but it's on 86th Street, which is a main east-west corridor. And it's beyond the building that is actually on Fifth Avenue. So you have to walk past the building on Fifth Avenue to get to this quote unquote Fifth Avenue address. You go upstairs into the apartment and you're in the apartment and you have the unbelievable views of Fifth Avenue. But what you don't know is if you look down 20 stories, there is another building that is right in front of you. Now that building is landmarked. That building is probably not going anywhere. However, with 30 years of experience, I've come to find out that even though it's landmarked by the New York City Historical Society, it does not mean that it cannot be raised and built on if it has the zoning available to do so, or what we call floor area ratio, essentially the air right to build up. And so I pointed that out, and the listing agent had no idea. Why? Because I've had a listing before that this happened to in the middle of marketing. And so there's no way that Zillow, AI, or any other tech is going to be able to replicate the experience. And so that's why attorneys are raising their rates. And that's why Josh Rubin is charging people 10% to sell their homes. I'm just kidding, of course. But I did actually make that argument.
10 bananas.
I did actually make that argument this week on Wednesday in a meeting with a prospective seller. And of course we laughed about it, and I was able to get it at 6%. But the bottom line is that the bottom line is that there's no way to replicate that. That said, Walmart recently came out with a partnership with OpenAI, and a number of other companies are going to do the same, whether it's OpenAI or one of their competitors. This is here to stay, and you're going to be forced to adapt. And there are maybe some agents of my generation or a generation ahead of me that are saying, you know what, I have my book of business. I have people who know, like, and trust me. They're going to call me to help them, regardless of AI. But the new agents are making inroads. There are the Sarhans and others who are really leaning heavily into tech to both get and maintain their leads. And I think that long term, there's no doubt that the agents who adopt technology are going to win tomorrow and into the future.
Oh, there's no question about it. What Josh, what you said is really important. The more complex the problem, the more staying power you're going to have in your business. So New York City, that market, in your market in particular, it's very complex. It's hard. It's hard for Google Maps to work when I'm walking in New York City. It's like, oh, Lisa, which way are we going? The wind is blowing. I'm getting cold out here. I don't think we're going the right way. Google Maps have barely figured out New York City. So for AI, chat, or Street Easy or whatever to solve somebody's real estate transaction, as Josh described, in that city, it's an impossible feat. There's just so many nuances to that island. Some easier, nuts to crack would be a 600 home single family community that has 4 floor plans, and the comps are very much, what they are. And, just because somebody put in different tile doesn't make their home worth more than the same floor plan. Those nuts are easier to crack. And so
I think that there's a ton of opportunity, Byron. You hit the nail right on the head in these one size fits all markets for tech, whether it be OpenAI or ChatGPT or Zillow or their partners. That's where the value of the agent, could be diminished. That said, there are lots of nuances involved in these transactions that agents add value, just in terms of the baseline foundational education to, holding the buyer's hands. Now, if you're an educated buyer, you want to take the risk. Hell, I had a client recently who bought a place all cash in a new development, and they have very specific values and perspectives on real estate and the transactions and nuances. They refused, signed an indemnification with their attorney. New York, yes, New York is an attorney state. Signed an indemnification with their attorney. They refused to take title insurance. Like, who does that? Well, this guy did. So if you're one of those consumers, then you should have choice, right?
That's
You know,
interesting.
if you look at where Zillow tests, Josh, their test markets are historically Arizona,
Oh yeah,
Texas. Florida. These are the more the one size fit Georgia. I mean, the one size fits all markets that you talk about. I mean, rarely. I mean, the four of us here in the Northeast, minus Chris, rarely do you see things get tested in our neck of the woods because it is more complex. It is different. So I think that that's a really great point for both you and Byron there. And look, Zillow's already doing this. They've demonstrated there. Orlando, like all these places where it's a little more one size fits all. So that's a great observation.
The thing that I don't think we've addressed, though, is so here's my kind of take on it. So one is that currently I think everybody needs to be aware that it's not pulling up all listings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So while they're including a lot, what they say on their own website is that they display most listing types. But right now they're limiting and they're not displaying new construction listings sourced from builders. Josh, there's no street easy buildings listed through the current integration. And while they say that they have plans to add them all later, they don't exist yet. So a consumer who relies fully on it may not be getting the whole picture. But I think for me, when I read all of this coming out, the thing that was super fascinating to me is that OpenAI has given over to Zillow like the responsibility, or I don't know what the right word I'm looking for is, but to determine how all of this information is displayed and what information is being displayed. And so it's an interesting thing to think about with like, is this going to kind of perpetuate some other stuff, or does there need to be more oversight as this continues to grow? Because you have the biggest, arguably the biggest AI company handing over to this behemoth within the real estate industry full authority to decide which data, which listings, how it's displayed, what's put in front of consumers. And I don't think that part of this is being talked about near enough, right? Like, I know we talk about the Zillow versus Compass thing, but can you look at this as another play to kind of further
100%.
that whole agenda?
There's this, and I'm going to say this objectively, right? And try and not have an opinion at least. There's this like Cold War that's brewing, right? And there's two sides to it. And it's really, really obvious when you look at the consolidation and the Compass acquisition of Anywhere, which I think was more of like merger, reverse merger, whatever that was. But looking at that, it seems like there's these sides forming and this consolidation of power, and everyone's trying to create leverage. And you're 100% right, Lisa. Like when it comes down to it, who is deciding what that model actually pulls? Because at the end of the day, I think the reason they're probably not displaying all listings is some sort of licensing issue with the MLSs. Robert Refkin posted the other day about CRMLS basically selling out. There was a big thing posted about it, had some public commentary on it. And it was around how these MLSs are just giving this data up now to the portals and stuff, which isn't really anything new. But you're right. Like, if someone goes into ChatGPT and says, show me the 2 million and under brownstone and blank, blank, and blank in this neighborhood, whose listings is it displaying and why? With what logic? Right. And I think that should, if it were me, I would want to know, especially as an agent and as a buyer, right? Because like that is textbook. There's all sorts of interesting things that could happen that are against every code of ethics at every MLS on the planet. Steering, blah, 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 blah. Like, what is the logic there? So I agree with you. That's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, even think about what you said earlier, which is, and one of the things I saw Tom starting to scribble down notes as you were talking about it, with agents optimizing their listings to index in ChatGPT. Now, what does that mean for a seller who hires these agents that we've been talking about, the 1 in 6 who have no intention of doing anything with AI for the next, what was it, 3 years, you said, Byron? And so what does it mean for the sellers who all of a sudden hire these agents? And like, what does that mean for the ability to actually market those listings and the exposure that those it's so fascinating. And I think that there's so much more to this that agents, the industry, consumers need to really start thinking about with giving up that level of control it's crazy.
Well, and I think it comes back to what Josh is saying here, where, a lot of agents, they have this my client, my lead mentality, and their database is getting pillaged, and they have no way to keep people in the store. They're not, they don't use the technology they already have, right? Like imagine just every one of your closed clients had like a seller e-alert and property drip of sales in their neighborhood. That would go a long way, but agents will not do it. The stats are, 70 or 80% of people would use their agent again, but very few do because no one calls them. They don't keep in touch. And these are people. Like, I think folks forget, like a lot of like the leads get, I think, disposed of with a lot of folks. Like when they see a lead come in. Yeah, these are real people. And if someone treated any one of us like that, I'm pretty sure I know what the reaction would be. So instead of treating these things as these inquiries and these leads and these people in your database as disposable, you might want to think about treating them like people, and your business would change dramatically.
Yeah,
no doubt.
I've recently started talking about this thing I call the golden rule of lead nurturing, and it's so incredibly simple. It's almost stupid. But Tom, I'm sure you probably already do this. If you're an agent, you want to keep up to date with your past clients and get lots of repeat and referral business, every contact in your database should have 2 things on it at all times. 1, a call logged in the last 30 days, right? Super simple. Call your past clients every 30 days, no matter what. And the second thing is a follow-up task to call them again in 30 days, right? Team leaders and brokerage owners, that's a really quick way to just keep your database hygienic. Make sure every agent has those 2 things. But Tom, correct me if I'm wrong. You make a bajillion phone calls. It is that simple. It's not easy, but it is partially that simple, right?
Invariably, I mean, I'd love to tell you I call all our closed clients every 30 days. We got too many, but it doesn't happen. I mean, but we are calling them multiple times a year, typically, 3 to 4 times a year, which is more than most. And, they get, weekly emails, and they get all sorts of stuff. I think the touch point, Luke Ackery said this is just more. Just try to hit them more. And
that's it.
Invariably, what will happen is I call someone. Some of these people I didn't even work with. These are people that are out of the business or left our team. And I call them. I say, hey, Chris, 5 years ago today, you bought your home. Happy anniversary. I can't believe you called. I just had a baby. We're thinking about moving next year. Like, it happens all the time. And people think that's luck. That's working a system. And you're staying in touch, because who calls you on your birthday or your house anniversary? The birthday, it's like maybe your mom. That's about it, right? And it is that simple, but agents just refuse to do it. They think it's stupid. They think they know better. And these are the people that are selling 3-4 homes a year.
My favorite question I get from agents when I tell them you should call your past clients frequently is, well, what am I supposed to say? And I'm like,
hello, talk to them like a person, Chris. It's very simple.
There's this thing that happens, and I don't want to go too deep on this, but like, I've realized this over the last 12, 13 years of being in this space now. We don't control extrinsic things that motivate people to buy and sell real estate, right? Usually it's extrinsic things, life events, they're moving, something happened. So they have these peaks and valleys in motivation where you could talk to a buyer today and they have no motivation. And then tomorrow they find out that they have to relocate to a new city because of their job and they're super motivated, right? The only thing we can control is the frequency of our contacts. And eventually you catch someone at the right time. And that's what Tom said. You get lucky. It's like, no, it's not luck. It's consistency, right? You're taking advantage of these things that happen that are out of our control. And that's how you win.
And if you've worked with them, you have something so valuable. You have that explicit permission until they tell you otherwise to reach out to them. And permission right now is a rare commodity. All right. I want to get to
I want to hear about what you need permission for in New York City, Byron. It sounds like it's changing.
I want to get to housing politics corner with Josh Rubin from New York City, the 2025 election for New York City's mayor is just 3 weeks away. There's been there was a debate this week in New York between the three mayoral candidates, and housing and affordability is a top subject among the three candidates. Josh, what's the feeling right now with New York City residents? Fleeing, staying? Are you rooting on Mamdani? What are you seeing in the streets of New York?
Josh, before you jump into this, guys, I got to jump to my next
Oh, look
call,
at
but
this.
it was awesome being on here.
We talk housing, politics, and
It's so
Giannos
fun. It's
bail.
funny.
Smart-
I don't think
smart
Chris
guy.
wanted the nomination.
Wait,
We're on
wait,
the hour, guys.
I nominate
Wait,
for New York City mayor.
Chris, do not leave
Chris,
yet.
don't
Chris,
leave.
do not
Just-
leave yet. I'm going to remove you from the main
Okay.
stage. All I ask is that you just turn off your camera and your microphone until you're fully
Yes.
uploaded. I'll shoot you a message. That way I don't have to bother you for uploading later.
I gotcha. Thanks for the invite, Byron. Bye, guys.
What a smart
Chris.
guy! What a smart guy bailing on us right when we talk housing politics. Josh, you're not going to bail on us, are you?
Well, actually, guys, no, I'm going to overstay my welcome, and I'm going to be the last person to leave because that's what I'm known for. Where'd everybody go? Hey, so as far as the mayor's race in New York City, it's really very simple. The sun this morning, it came up from the east, and later today it's setting in the west. And I can guarantee that death and taxes and the fact that New York City is going to remain New York City, people are going to want to live, work, visit, and invest in New York City because why? It's the center of commerce, it's the center of culture, and it's the center of the culinary universe. So with that said, who our mayor is has no bearing on it, right? We got through a guy named Lindsay, right? We got through Ed Koch, we got through Dinkins, we got through Giuliani, Bloomberg, and the real loser of them all, well, Lindsay was one of the worst in New York history. He almost brought New York City to bankruptcy. Literally, they had to get a federal bailout. And de Blasio basically reversed course with all of the good. Now, Giuliani, he's considered to be America's mayor because he was leading up the charge for the bailout of September 11th. Without September 11th, he would not be known for much, but he did do a lot of good, both with Bernie Kerik and Bill Bratton, to eradicate crime through a controversial philosophy called broken windows. And that was, of course, where there's a hint of crime, there's probably more to follow. So they would concentrate the police presence in those communities that saw an uptick in minor crimes. And they implemented a policy that was also controversial called stop and frisk. That means that they could stop and frisk anyone at any time, including Lisa or myself, no matter what.
Me.
They didn't
That
need
way
a
you would go to
warrant.
New York all the time, Lisa?
She went there all the time. She was going a lot more frequently when they were stopping and frisking. Now she doesn't go as often.
I'm going again in a couple weekends too. So
Right.
funny.
Are you bringing back the
So-
stop and frisk? Have you asked for the stop and frisk? Are you-
So my point though is they use these to stop people, look at their ID, run their information, and in the event that they had an outstanding warrant, they would obviously be able to arrest them. In recent years, though, and it's most prevalent in New York, but also places like Portland, Oregon, San Francisco, and other cities to a lesser extent. The state legislatures have stepped in and implemented what we've all been hearing about, which is these bail reform laws. And it's prevented the police from being able to hang on to these criminals. So what do? They go through the turnstile of being arrested, and then they're back out oftentimes within 24, if not 12 hours. And they're back out on the streets committing the same, in many cases, violent crimes against perfectly innocent civilians. So, it's extraordinarily frustrating to see this at work. But then, and they're so democratic that they are being labeled as socialists. And so that's what we have in this candidate, Mamdani, and coupled with the fact that he's suggesting $10 billion worth of free resources. So a lot of people are up in arms and very concerned about quality of life and businesses and how we're all going to be able to sustain the community that we know and love in New York City. And it remains to be seen. But of course, I think that a lot of his most controversial ideas are not going to be able to be implemented, as is often the case with politics.
All right. So let's get real here for a second, though. You frame this up by saying New York's going to survive because there's great restaurants. I agree. There's great restaurants. There's Broadway. There's
restaurants. I'll tell you what New York is. New York is great people.
Great people. It's a culture.
And it's the fabric of the community that you can't replicate anywhere.
You described what the feeling is that people get when they go to New York City or certainly live or work in New York City like you do. What New York City really is the finance capital of the world, and it is held up by financial institutions. And without financial institutions, New York City would be the next Detroit. And so that's the reality. Yeah. And if you are going to, what do finance people like? They like to make a lot of money. They like to have upside in the amount of money that they can make. And a mayor candidate in Mamdani, who wants to cap people's ability to earn, doesn't believe in billionaires should exist. What do you think that's going to do for some of the wealthiest clientele that you and the other brokers in New York City have the opportunity to work with every day? I mean, are you hearing?
It's very simple. If Mamdani gets elected, which no one knows, just because he got the Democratic nomination, it is assumed that he is going to be mayor. Hang on one second.
The other two candidates he's running against are kind of useless, so he's probably going to. I mean, he might get in.
Giuliani was a Republican. Okay. Bloomberg ran on a Republican ticket and was able to adjust certain city laws so that he was able to serve not a second term, but a third term. And he ran on a Republican ticket. Now, New York City is it's considered to be a Democratic stronghold, but it's really sort of a centrist city. Because if you get out there and you talk to people, yes, there's a ton of Democrats, registered Democrats concentrated in and around New York City, but there's also a ton of Republicans too. So do we really think that Mamdani is going to win against the other candidates? Look, Sliwa is just going to steal votes and people are going to vote for him because they remember when he patrolled the subways back in the 80s and kept us safe with the guardian angels. And I think that he has some interesting views, but I agree with Trump in saying that he probably should have dropped out a long time ago. Now, what happens to the rest of the electorate that's not young, ultra left-leaning Democrat? You know, Cuomo has his issues, but I think that my vote is one for experience. It's one for someone who knows how to get things done, and so. But Cuomo seems like the odds-on favorite to me. Now,
the poly market has 90% chance that Mamdani wins.
Yeah, I have the betting odds here too, Byron, and I know they've been doing really well in the past 3 presidential elections. Mamdani is a minus 1250 bet, so you have to bet 1250 to win 100. That's a massive favorite. Yeah. Cuomo's plus 600, and then Curtis Lee was plus 5,000. So that's, I mean, that tells you what's going on there.
I mean, right now, you're 3 weeks away.
That's odds checker.
And it is an overwhelming favorite that Mamdani gets in. Now, I ultimately agree with you, Josh, that he has some big visions and he obviously has made some really divisive statements that he's walked back on the debate stage this past week, which is probably pretty smart if he wants to continue the stronghold. But so a lot of these things probably maybe don't get done, and New York City really doesn't have the money to just be giving away $10 billion like he wants. And they certainly won't have the money if they have a outbound migration increase like they have seen at different times. I agree. New York City should be the center of it all. It is and should be the best city in the world. I would say it's not the best city in the world in its current state, but it should be the best city in the world. But
As someone who visits New York often and has spent quite a bit of time here, including time with me, what do you think prevents New York from being the best city?
well, I think this current culture of demonizing people who are ambitious and want an opportunity to earn exponential incomes, and I think getting away from capitalism would be really dumb. And there's a really young mindset that latches on to Mamdani's way of thinking, of kind of restricting growth and capping opportunity. I mean, just think about that. Capping opportunity, that's a really bad plan. I think the second thing that's holding it back is, New York City is considerably grosser than when I was spending a lot of time there, maybe even a decade or 15 years
Grosser?
ago. Yeah, I mean, there's human feces on the street in some areas, and now
Listen, I'm on these streets every day of the week.
maybe it was
And
dog. I mean, people with dogs, they don't always have those little plastic bags, but there is brown poop on the streets. Okay, and there is the smell of
The sa-
marijuana
the
smoke
same-
everywhere. You
the
can't
same
go.
can be said for Norfolk, Virginia, and,
Well, Norfolk's
Stamford,
Norfolk's
Connecticut.
always been that way. Norfolk, Virginia is a crap hole.
There's the
But,
cold open.
no, that's
Come to
not the cold
Philadelphia,
open,
my
Bobby.
friends.
But
Come to Philadelphia.
you can't go anywhere around, Hudson Yards without smelling just clouds of marijuana smoke. I mean, the city is just a little grungy. And I mean, it's always been, kind of gritty, but it is grungy now. And I don't know. It's not that clean of a place. So I don't ever feel unsafe there. So I think some of the safety concerns, and you would know better than I would, obviously. I've never felt unsafe there. Doesn't mean if you live there every day that you don't feel more unsafe than you used to. But I think I don't think it's a centrist city at all. I think it has a warped mindset when it comes to politics, and that's what's really changed the city.
Well, I can tell you that I work with all these people, both high and low, and it's a centrist city masquerading as a democratic city, just
So-
in terms of the perspectives and the views, because it's really a mixed bag. I mean, this guy is 34 years old. His wife is 28. Did not attend the debate last night. She taught a ceramics class in Park Slope.
Well, he's never had a
Okay.
job. I mean, he's never had a actual job. He's only worked in government. And so I think that would be a mistake. But I mean, not that Cuomo's really done anything either. So look at the candidates that you have. Look at the three candidates. They are all super not impressive as a mayor of what's supposed to be the greatest city in the world. Like, you have nobody that wants to step up to that plate and run that city. You have really bad options. So I feel sorry for you guys.
Yeah. I mean, look, it is what it is. But, that said, we're in an interesting time. John Bolton was just indicted. And so, it's just a wild time. Unpredictable.
I mean, I know there's a lot of brokers that have posted that they do not want to see Mamdani. So it'll be interesting to see if your phone lights up in November when he gets in from your clients who are thinking, should I make a move? Should I not? I mean, listen, the sun will rise, Josh, and maybe this will be a boom for listings for you guys. We'll see. We'll have to see. But Josh Rubin's going to be, he'll be on here a little bit more regularly to give us those insights, I guess, is what
We brokered the deal over Barry's cheesesteak and an IPA in Roxborough a couple weekends ago. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And I made it back right on time too.
Yeah. All right, friends, that was a good one. Have a great weekend. Tom, you got any final thoughts here?
Go Birds.
Yeah, of course he does.
I got nothing. We covered it all, Byron. We said it all. Great show. Giannos left at the right time.
You guys
Focus.
have probably covered this, but Compass taking over 340,000 agents by issuing, more stock to acquire Anywhere.
Well, you should save that
Yeah.
for next week, Josh, because you're going to be back on next
We
week.
haven't even talked about it, and we didn't even scratch the surface. Of course, we talked about it.
We'll get Josh's thoughts on that one next week.
All right, Josh is back next week. That's it. Sign the deal right now, Josh.
All right.
Thanks for having me, guys.
You're
Back in
welcome.
the fold.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for checking out this week's Knowledge Brokers podcast. If you want to take what we're doing here at BAM and use it in your own business, join us over at School. We just switched BAMX into the #1 education and community platform. Go to school.com/BAMX or hit the link in the description, school.com/BAMX. I'll see you in the community.